Hello, and welcome to Digital Decode with Qhala. My name is Laura Walubengo, and I am your host for this podcast, where we'll be diving into anything that has to do with technology in Africa. And the aim of this podcast is for us to be able to decode anything that's happening digitally on the continent. As you know, the future of this continent is steeped in technology, and so you better be listening. What we're trying to do here is make sure that you're enlightened and inspired. Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of Digital Decode. I'm your hostess, Laura Walubengo, and today I have somebody very interesting on set. He's a thinker. He looks like a thinker. So if you see him on the streets, you'll be like, that guy must be thinking something very important. His name is Lee Mungai from Qhala, and I'd just like to now ask him to introduce himself.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Yes, so my name is Lee Mungai. I'm a technical advisor at Qhala. Basically, I'm an engineer by profession, and I basically help at Qhala in terms of engineering efforts, in terms of building products, strategy, in terms of technical strategy, advisory to different engineering teams, also mentoring engineers, also at the team, and basically building solutions within the business. Thank you.
You know, this word engineer, to me, I mean, when you're growing up, when you hear engineer, this is the guy who probably fixes the lights, or maybe they fix the cars.
Yes.
But I'm thinking engineer nowadays means something completely different.
Yes.
What exactly does it mean to be an engineer?
Yeah. In this particular case, actually, a software engineer.
Software
I think
engineer.
that's where we need to be.
That's the distinction.
Exactly.
Okay.
So basically my role at Qhala is to work with the software engineers who basically build different solutions across the business for different customers. So my role basically is to help them basically be more productive, help them in building some products. So I'm also a software engineer myself. So I also help in engineering efforts in terms of building software, working with these different teams that are building different solutions across the business to be able to help them to be more productive, and also providing some insight in terms of my past experience and helping them build products better and faster and more efficiently.
So when you say engineering software, what does that mean really?
Yeah. So one part of Qhala is we have a consulting arm of the business where we build custom solutions for our customers. These are very custom. So where a customer comes and says, I need a solution that does X, Y, Z, and we basically take that in, we define, design, and then we actually build to that specification, right? And that output of that is the solution or the software product that our customers basically define for us, that they want to solve particular problems in their businesses. So we basically go through that whole entire journey of, gathering requirements from the customer in terms of what they need or what they want to be built. And then we design that, then to take that into a whole life cycle of requirements gathering, designing, building, testing, and then pushing that out to the customer.
What would you say, and this is a very weird question, but what would you say as you were growing up got you to this point? What skills did you develop, even as a kid, that made it easier for you to do the work that you do now?
That's a great question. I was very fortunate enough to have gone to a high school, Storehair Boys Center, which back then was one of the few high schools in the late 80s that actually had programming as a thing that you could...
Oh, really?
Yeah. So literally from one, I remember literally in my first month, I was learning basic programming. So literally from 14 years old, I got hooked onto it. Like literally, how you have a swimming club, Boy Scouts, they had a programming club. So I joined that and I got hooked. And ever since, I've just literally been writing code for like 20 plus years.
But at that time, did you really understand what it was about, or it's just, something that you were playing with?
Yeah, initially it was just a curiosity. But then now when you start learning the language, and there's so many programming languages, but when you start learning the language and then you start learning what you can do with it, especially when you see the output of what you've you've built. Initially, start something simple, but over time, you start building more and more, complex things. Then it gets really interesting because you're like, wow, I can actually earn from this, right? And that's initially what happened. So at the moment I finished high school, I literally started working right after high school because in 4 years I'd already kind of learned the fundamentals, and I was able to start building software literally after high school.
So who did you work for? Who were you building
Oh
software
yeah.
for?
So at that time, it was a long time ago. I was just consulting. I remember one of my clients.
You were consulting those days?
Yes.
Hey, come on.
I remember at one time I got a gig at Nestle Foods back then. Again, I'm this young kid who've just finished high school, and I told them, yeah, I can help you build a database for one of the divisions, and that's that 4 years of just writing code in high school helped me build that foundation. And ever since, it's just been that whole course of just building different solutions. And then, of course, tech has changed also. I mean, what tech was there then has changed and evolved over time. So, which is also another thing about this business we're in, is that it's an always evolving industry, right? So you have to keep on always learning the new tools, the new languages, the new versions of languages. So it's an always learning process. Like you cannot stop learning.
Considering the fact that you have to keep learning.
Yep.
And you're a technical advisor managing a group of software engineers.
Yes.
How does that work? Does it overlap sometimes? And how do you deal with situations like that? Because you can never tell where people are learning things now. You can learn from anywhere.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up to date?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Typically, like in a software project, and that's the other thing about writing software, especially custom software, when you have different requirements, and especially also as a software consultant myself, one of the things that you face all the time is when each project has very different parameters. For example, you could be asked to join an existing project where they have a particular technology they use, which you've never used before, right? Or you've used it, but used maybe a version of it 3 years ago, right? So it's very common in software projects to find a lot of software engineers learning on the job, which is just part and parcel of how things work. This is because you cannot really learn everything. And there's so many tools and technology and stacks that you have to learn. So part of just this industry is you have to learn within the job as you're working and also when you're not working.
So it's basically like all these languages that you say are there.
Yeah.
And then now they come up with new vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then you're like, that's a new word.
Or new
and
features.
And it keeps changing in the dictionary as well.
Yeah,
like
or new
words.
features and new capabilities, right? And sometimes you only get to want to use some of those features because of a requirement of a piece of software that you're building. And you're like, oh, wait, so this new version has this feature. I think we can now utilize that to solve that problem, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so it also goes ahead with what you're trying to build. Because again, especially in the consulting side of things, you're really building something specific to a spec of a customer, right? So now the question is, and especially here, this is where the advisory thing comes, is what is the best technology or tools we can use that can solve that problem, right?
In the fastest way possible.
Right. So now you have to look at, okay, these are all the tools we know. Let's figure out what is the best that we can use. Do we know how to use it? No. Okay, maybe we need, as part of the project plan, is to put in some time to be able to just scale up real fast, right? And that's another thing that you find today also, which was not there like 10, 20 years ago, was, I mean, there's no YouTube those days. I mean, these days you can literally jump on YouTube and do a tutorial like for 8 hours. So you burn a whole night. And by the morning, you're like, okay, at least I have a good grasp of kind of how this new tool or technology works. So now let me go to work and then try it out, right?
And then try it out.
There's thousands of tutorials now, which makes it so much easier to learn as compared to 10, 20 years ago, where that was not even there. Right.
So let me take you back 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When you had finished high school.
Yeah.
And you're doing consultancy for Nestle Foods. I know at that point, I think for many of us, when you start working, it doesn't make sense for you to go back to college.
Right.
But did you?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I skipped.
That's it, man.
Exactly. I was like, I'm No.
You just hit
I
the
was
ground
sure.
running. That was it.
Exactly. I was hooked. Like literally, it became just I don't say an addiction, but I was just so sure this is exactly what I want to do. And then I think those days also the challenge was that whatever you applied for, to like what you wanted to do in college, was not always a guarantee.
Yeah.
Right? It was a hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately for me, I was sure it's computer science I wanted to do, but that was not what I got offered. So I was like, let me just continue building because I already know this is what I want to do. Yeah, and that's the path I've been on since.
And how did your folks receive that information?
I
How
know,
did-
especially
How
those
was
days.
that?
Because college, college was I know, no, like what are you? Yeah, I know it was not well received because that was I mean those days like that was not it was not an option. It's like you are
Yeah.
yeah, especially with the old school parents like that. Yeah,
Difference between success and failure.
exactly, right? Especially when you used to say the word papers those days.
Oh yeah.
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 You need to have papers.
I know those
You remember?
papers. Yeah.
You know the papers thing, right? Exactly. Right. You need to have papers. But yeah, just like I'm good. I know this is my calling. This is what I want to do. So I just continued on that path. Yeah.
So at what point did you now say, okay, I'm doing enough of this. I can start building my own life?
Yeah, so actually, even prior to that, so one of the things I eventually, by the way, got a job, and I think that company, Acropolis Software, is really what put me on the map, because it was actually a software company here in Nairobi that was doing amazing things. So it was a Microsoft a partner company, and once I joined that team, they were doing some amazing things in the region. And I'm saying region, I mean East Africa, right? They were just building some solutions that were just ahead of their time. And in fact, I think that company is what actually influenced kind of Microsoft to open an office in Nairobi. So because this was prior to Microsoft opening an office in Nairobi. So that really also put me on another level, because now we started building enterprise type solutions, for customers across the region. And that just took me a notch higher into now that space of building enterprise solutions. And in fact, it also kind of complemented what I'd all learned in high school in terms of the programming languages I'd learned, most of which were actually Microsoft ones. Right? So now I get this really cool job, which actually is a Microsoft partner company. And now we're literally utilizing Microsoft tools to build custom solutions for customers. So that was heaven for me. Yeah. But eventually, again, ended up, fast forward, and we'll talk about that later maybe, I ended up just, what I do now is I do run a business that does also consulting in terms of just building custom solutions. And in fact, that's how I came across to meet Qhala, because the consulting unit really does that in a very big way for customers across the continent. And therefore, I offer my expertise in terms of advisory and product development and mentoring and strategy and so forth.
So before we get into that, let me just take you back a little bit. So the solutions that you say that you're building, were most of them for corporates, or is it solutions for community? How did that work?
Yeah, mostly it was corporates. When I say enterprise, that was most of the case. That was the case then. But I think what has changed in the past maybe 10, 20 years is also just how even startups need a lot of solutions now, right? But then that time, I think the focus really was more on the enterprise customers, i.e. corporate customers. Yeah. And then, of course, also the other thing that I think has also evolved is just the open source community. One of I've been fortunate also in my career to also have worked at Ushahidi and the open source and how they build Ushahidi. And I'm very fortunate to be part of that journey of building the Ushahidi platform. And that open source space has also grown a lot over the past 10 years. And that now also caters to a whole lot of other use cases and other audiences, just besides even corporates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you work as a consultant for Qhala, and you say that there's a consultancy arm,
Yes.
let's say, of Qhala.
Correct.
Could you just explain that a little bit? Tell me what it's about.
Yeah. So ideally, and it's very common that you come across what we call use cases. Use cases are basically scenarios where customers have a problem they want to solve. So already they have a solution that runs or not, right? Others are just literally starting from scratch, and they're like, okay, we're thinking about getting into technology adoption, and we want to now we've been just using all this like paperwork and stuff, and now we want to kind of automate this process, right? And we want your expertise to help us build that automation, right? Okay. So those use cases are many, some of which they're either improving something or starting to build something, or they need advice, literally, in terms of how do they best move forward in terms of the situation, and and so many things. For example, one of the things that has also been happening is a lot of customers are still not on the cloud, like cloud computing, cloud adoption, right? So how do you get a customer that had a solution that was running internally in the premises for the last 20 years, and now they're thinking of building this new solution, and now the advice is actually this could be better off running in the cloud, and here's a plan of how we need to get this system to now eventually be migrated to the cloud to be able to now use this new system, right? So there's so many use cases that come across the business in terms of the consulting arm of the business. And for us, basically, is to basically help these customers, transition, transform, and basically build for them these solutions to solve those use cases, which are many, and do that in the most efficient way possible. And cost-effective way possible, because that's another thing too. For example, in just of cloud adoption is what customers have to understand now, building or rather running the solution the first time on the cloud, and the costs that come with that, and the differences that has as compared to having your solutions running on premise, right? So it's a very interesting unit because each project is so unique from the other one. Right, which is why you have to be so versatile in terms
fun,
of
though.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because you have to be so versatile in terms of thinking, okay, how can we best solve this use case for customer A, which is very different from customer B, right? So we have to be very dynamic in how we just operate and how we just address these use cases and figure out the best way to build the solutions to solve this customer use cases.
I think, one of the questions I was going to ask you as you were talking, you sort of answered it while talking.
Okay.
But I was wondering why a corporate or an enterprise would come to you rather than just Google how to do it by themselves online.
That's a good question. So in fact, now what's also very interesting in these times we are in, there's this whole new era of no-code platforms. Literally these days you can actually, without any software engineering experience, you can actually use some tools and actually build a quick solution by yourself. It has come to that space of you can actually do that now without any. But I think for some of the customers we interact with, I think the complexity can get where those tools cannot really get you there, right?
Or you need somebody even to know how to use the tools.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also other things you also need to do, for example, is there's also this whole thing of business analysts where you have to analyze the problem that the customer is trying to solve first, just to even understand that problem, which is a very key component in consulting, because you really need to understand the problem they're trying to solve and any other dependencies to that. And then the best way now to transform that into technical requirements that then we then determine what's the best tools and technologies to use to solve that problem. So there's a space now where you can actually build your own solutions, the simple drag and drop stuff. But I think the also other customers who really have more complex problems that need literally a team to build and solve that problem. Yeah, and it can take actually a while. It can take months even just to, or weeks to even figure out what exactly is the problem, and then how do we break this down into small units that we start now building.
That's the engineering mind that starts working there.
Exactly, right. Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so maybe in the past, I don't know, 6 months, year, what are some of the interesting projects you've worked on?
Yeah, so Canex is one of them. Actually, I'm literally 6 months old in the company.
Really?
Yes, so Canex is the one project I've been heavily involved in, which is basically a platform that empowers African creatives to connect, collaborate on a very amazing platform.
How does it do that?
Yeah, so the three pillars are create, learn, and earn. So basically, it's a platform. I'd kind of like to summarize it, kind of like a LinkedIn for African creatives, right? It's the best way to summarize it, where I'm signing up to this platform as a creative. Think about any kind of creative. And then I interact with other creatives, right? And then we collaborate on building something new and earning out of it, right? So basically, that's a platform that Qhala has been working on for the last 1 year. That I'm part of that project, and it just went live in October.
Nice.
So we are very excited, actually, because now it basically finally launched, and it's running out of Egypt. It's a very big client of ours, and it's basically an Africa-wide platform that connects creatives across the continent.
What does a platform look like? So I log in, create my profile.
Exactly.
Say what I do.
What your interests are.
What my interests are. And then based on what I've put, there's other people there that sort of will pop up.
Sure.
And say, okay, similar likes.
Similar interests.
Similar interests, something like that.
Exactly.
And then we can decide to collaborate.
Exactly.
Maybe I've heard of you, maybe I haven't.
Right.
But I guess when I'm setting up my profile, I have my whole portfolio is there and everything.
Exactly.
How do I earn, though?
Yeah. So you can basically build some content. In fact, that's part of the things we're building also, where you can monetize on some of your artwork or your on the platform. The platform is still a work in progress, but one of the things is that part of the content that you have, you can actually monetize on the platform, and that's a big part of what we're working on still. But it's very much you create, post your content. You can define what the cost and the value, and then collaborate with others to be able to build a new project, and also decide how much or what that should cost, right?
So I guess the projects need to be in form of a product, so that how do I get the customers to get onto Canex or onto the platform? It's a website, or
yes,
it's
an
app?
So Canex.Africa is a website. I'd encourage everyone, whoever is listening to this, if you're creative, definitely go to Canex.Africa. It's a website, basically, where you sign up, just like you do in LinkedIn, and you create your profile. You will be matched. There's also matching that goes on there, depending, again, on your interests and your sectors and all that. And then you see other people and other bodies of work that other people have done. And there's a way to collaborate. There's a whole chat, just similar to LinkedIn, where you can chat with another creative and collaborate and say, hey, look, I like your piece of work, and this is what I'm doing in this other country. How can we connect and build something new and collaborate, right? So yeah, it's a very new concept, but it's again, it just went live in October. And we're very happy that the uptake has been great. And of course, the marketing efforts are still ongoing by our client, just to get that word out across the continent. It's definitely still at the early stages, but I think it's going to be something very powerful going forward.
I think it's interesting that it's across the continent. In fact, that's one thing I was going to ask about. Why Africa?
So that's a requirement from the client. Again, this is not, this is our client that we, again, like I mentioned, it's the use case or the use cases that the client defines and how they want, that's basically a requirement from the customer. And that's their target audience. They have a reason why, but part of the requirement of what they give us is this has to scale across the continent. And that's why it's called Canex.Africa, to attract that particular audience specifically.
So technically speaking, how difficult is it to create something that can sort of resonate with the whole of a continent?
How difficult is it?
Yeah, or like what are some of the things you consider?
Yeah, so I think, for example, think of like a painter. You want to post up your paintings or your artwork. And then we talk about creatives. It could be anything. Maybe you're a fashion designer, but I think the way to make it visual, I think, is the one thing to kind of showcase that in the platform, so that you can get that then engagement with other creatives. So I think maybe I think for me, I would think the first thing is, how do I get my artwork or my visuals of my work on the platform, so that now we can start engaging with others? Because then again, remember, you can be anything. You can be a musician, for example. You want to post up your audio there so that people can maybe hear some samples of your music. And then you're like, oh, wait, we can collaborate on some music. Okay. So I think getting your body of work on the platform, I think, would be the first major thing you need to do to then get in that journey of collaborating with other creatives in the content. Yeah.
And I guess also making sure that whatever you upload is safe.
Exactly.
Know? Yeah.
Right. Yes. And it's your property.
Yeah.
Intellectual property. Yeah.
Because there's some horror stories out there.
Yeah.
But okay, now in the new age
Yeah.
of AI,
Yeah.
and I don't know if the word AI is going to change soon enough, because there's so much mystery attached to that word. You're not sure, is it technology, is it a way of doing things?
Yeah.
But I guess it can fit into very many different descriptions.
Yeah.
But in this advent of AI technology all over the place, new people coming up with new types of technology almost on a weekly basis. Does that impact the products you develop and how you engineer these solutions?
Yeah, I think from an engineering standpoint, yes. One of the things that I think generative AI has really helped in terms of engineering is code generation, right? So, which is very helpful in terms of helping boost software engineer productivity, is part of generating actual code to help you do the tasks that you do all the time that are just very repetitive. So the advent right now, especially with the new editors, code programming editors, all these now code assistants, AI code assistants, that help you basically write code much more efficiently and faster, and then they help you just generate code where you just do the repetitive things. That has really helped, and I think that's kind of where I see the biggest value we get from the engineering standpoint in terms of our day-to-day work of just building products and writing software, where now there are all these code assistants that watch what you're doing and what you're building, and then they can help you basically build more efficiently and automate some tasks that you do all the time, and help you solve problems. Yeah, so I think that's very big for us. Of course, there are many other aspects, but I think from an engineering standpoint, that's the big value I see in AI in terms of helping us in our engineering day-to-day tasks.
So it makes you work faster?
Exactly.
And it makes you work more intelligently.
Yeah. Because one thing that happens a lot is building software is actually not very easy. As much as you have an idea of what you're trying to build, when you build to that what the thought you had, and you run the software, it actually does not work the way you thought. So one of the things that happens a lot in engineering is you have to figure out stuff, which basically means you go online and start looking for a solution because you're trying to do this, but it didn't work the same way you want, right? So it's called debugging. So debugging, where you just try and debug something, then you come across an error, and then you come across a technical difficulty, and then you have to go online and spend hours and hours and hours looking for someone across the world who has come across the same problem, right? And then like, oh yeah, this is how I solve that problem. So I think in that regard, you can save a lot of time because some of this, code assistants can help you figure out some of these things, and that's kind of like I see that the value there in just saving you in terms of a lot of hours spent just trying to troubleshoot, because maybe also you don't have the experience to design software properly, and therefore maybe you wrote code the wrong way, which is then causing these issues that you're having. So this code assistance can help you just in your day-to-day tasks and help you be more productive and help in different aspects of your programming work.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Because you create a platform, you create it as a human, you create a platform that's supposed to help you create other things.
Yes. I know. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess it doesn't get tired, it doesn't get thirsty, hungry, such
Right.
things. So that makes it easier for it to work.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's some of the most amazing solutions you've ever come up with? To you, the one you look at and always say, this is something that defined my life, and I'm very proud that I was part of this project.
Yeah. So 10 plus years ago, I was very fortunate to be in the team that built the Safaricom CRM. Yeah. So now you have to think about pre that. Pre that, when you went to a Safaricom shop, it was crazy to manage customers when you went to a Safaricom shop. So we were team, quite a huge team, and that solution was built in Portugal.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yes, and we built that. It was a huge team, both with Safaricom people and another Portuguese company that specializes on building CRM systems for telephone companies, right? And these days, when I every time I walk by a Safaricom shop, or I even take my family, right? I literally know what that person is behind the screen. That is a CRM that was built 10 plus years ago that powers Safaricom, literally, because that's the foundation of the business, right? Everything about you as a subscriber, that person has a whole view of you when you just walk in to get to be served. And so I think for me, I every time I walk by a Safaricom shop, I'm very humbled. Exactly.
How long did that take?
That was years, actually. I think it took about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a massive project, and it powers Safaricom, and it's a very complex system, but it brings a lot of value to the business.
I guess then it makes sense for you to have so many people on the team then, because you really have to bounce ideas off each other. You have to really work as a team.
Yes.
You can't, I mean, you can develop software on your own, but then when you're working as a team, it's just much more efficient.
Yeah, and then also in that team, there's so many roles, right? There's analysts. I mean, building, again, this is a telephone company. It's not a typical, enterprise or, corporate customer. It's literally a telephone company that has a network, and subscribers are connected to it, right? So the subscriber is a very key person in that whole. So just getting requirements to build that took months just to figure out what is this thing we're building. So the very different roles and team members in such a project, and it's a massive project with so many people doing so many different roles and tasks. Just besides even just engineers, it's a lot of this project managers. There's again, like I said, analysts. There's testers. There's, of course, talking out to the customer themselves. Now the point of contact that deal with the actual business analysts now from the client side. So yeah, it's a very huge team that does. There's a lot of moving parts, and it all has come together to release at least the first version and get push it out and see how it, again, to all the network in terms of the network of shops and how that gets adopted. But yeah, it requires a massive team.
That's so funny, because I was going to ask you, what are some of the misconceptions that businesses have when it comes to product development? But I think I have a misconception of my own, because it's very easy for me to think that you're leading a team. The team is working on different projects, and you're just there to make sure that everything goes smoothly. But then you can't really work on a project on your own, can you?
Yeah. Actually, that's another thing about our teams at Qhala. It's very common that you're in several projects as an engineer, software engineer. So it's even managing that, because again, each project is so different from the other one, right? So you also have to manage your time, and also, again, you're using different tools, technologies, and you're doing something totally different here. So yes, it's the balancing is also can get challenging, because there's just so many different requirements from this project to another one, different tools, different technologies, and for you, even for me, because I'm also part of building some of those solutions, is even just managing that as well in terms of my time and different plans and schedules for different projects.
So how do you, I mean, the way you've described it, a lot of it is about thinking. How do you segment time to think? You know, how do you say, I'm going to think about project A for 20 minutes. And then after that, you switch off your brain and say, I'm going to think about project B for 20 minutes.
That's very tough. It's tough.
How do you balance that? How does that work?
It's very tough. And that's why you find typically for a lot of software engineers that it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's literally 24 hours. There's no like, oh yeah, now I switch off after 5. It's literally any time of the day you are figuring something out of project A or B. And it can get crazy. And then all these meetings, so you have to do every day to give you an update on how far you reached and whether you're stuck somewhere. You have to tell the team, and then now we have to figure out how to help you to figure out the team. So it's a very, it can get a bit crazy because the different projects you're working on with different challenges, and you have to communicate to team members, and you have to contribute to each project more or less the same time. Because they have maybe the deliverables could be also more or less around the same schedule. And that's where it gets a bit complicated, especially for the life of a software engineer, because it's really, there's no 9 to 5. It's just, which is why it's very common to hear that engineers work at night. Yeah.
When there's no noise.
Exactly. Like at night is when you actually start working. That's very common. And it's something, again, as a team leader, you have to understand those kind of aspects that most of these people like actually working at night. Because during the day, there's so many distractions. There's meetings, there's all this stand-ups and stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to deliver. And the best time to do that would be at night when it's very quiet and, you have the time to just build without any distractions.
So let's say somebody wants to be a software engineer or a developer, and they're looking to see how they have the skill set, and they're looking to see how they can maximize. What advice would you give them in terms of learning themselves as a person that would sort of give them an edge?
Yeah. So, an engineer there's some traits that could help you. Because one of the things you really need to be, in terms of an engineer, is you have to be very curious and patient. Like I said, you could spend hours and days trying to figure out one small problem, and that can be very frustrating, right? So that the patience, the curiosity, problem-solving skills really help, because you also have to try different things. As much as you will go out there and figure out someone did solve the same way. You try that, it doesn't work. You have to be very good at just solving problems, because that's kind of basically what you're doing. You're building a solution to solve a particular problem, but in the process of doing that, you come across issues, and you have to figure out how to solve those problems to be able to build. So yeah, I think curiosity, patience, problem-solving skills are really good things to have in you, in terms of, because even if you don't have the patience, it's very hard to enjoy this role.
Okay, so if let's say I'm a client and I'm trying to procure your services, what rank of people in different organizations do you usually interact with in terms of business leaders? What category of people do you interact with?
Yeah, typically, most of the times would be on the other side, on the client side, would be maybe people from the tech side of the business who are like, okay, fine, now we come across this challenge we're having. We use these tools internally, and we've come across this challenge, and now we're trying to automate this. We're trying to build this new module. So typically would be somebody from the IT side of the business.
Okay.
That would have kind of some requirement or some pain point they need solved.
Okay.
And that's more or less what we interact with. But then again, of course, there are also other customers that are literally plain and simple, just starting off from scratch. And they're like, we have never automated anything. Now so sometimes you can even be talking to just like a manager of the business who's just, not necessarily even technical, which in fact then brings also another thing about the bit of consulting, is that you could be interacting with customers who are not technical. And you have to have that skill of speaking English, right? Right?
Yeah.
To explain what you're going to build in English.
Yeah.
But fine.
And the complexities of it.
Right. And then also trying to understand how they're communicating to figure out what exactly is the pain point. Because again, they're not technical, but they're just saying, okay, this is how things have been working here. So it's also that kind of interaction that you also kind of have to have the skills about interacting with customers who are not necessarily technical, but they have a problem or a pain point, and you need to establish that by just having that pure English communication. You're like, okay. And it could take even days or weeks just to kind of have that discussion and like, okay, so this is actually the problem that they're trying to communicate, but it's just that they can't say it
in that way.
Technical way. And that's kind of where I also come in to kind of have these discussions with this such
merge the languages.
Exactly. And to be able now to translate that to technical requirements now to the team so that now we can like, okay, this is exactly what we need to build. Yeah.
Most of the clients that you get, are they local? Are they Africa wide?
It varies. It's regional. It's local. There's no limitation.
There's no limitation.
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the things that you like most about working with Qhala? What do you like about the character of Qhala as an organization?
I think I think one of the things is also like I like the fact that they have a very huge footprint across the region, and they're solving different challenges, and I think that's and I also like the fact that the impact that the solutions have across the region and globally. That is very exciting for me because Qhala is known globally. It's a global company, and we're solving big problems and that have impact. And that for me is very, very exciting. Yeah.
So personally, from a personal standpoint, what would you aspire to be a part of? I mean, if you're in the business of problem solving, what is your dream to be able to work on and achieve?
I think if taking this Canex platform to the next level, I think this is going to be a massive platform. I know we just kicked off, but I can see this in the next 5 years being a massive, massive platform for African creatives and the impact that will have for Africa. I'll be very glad to be part of that journey.
Why do you think it's important?
Because it helps, it transforms people's lives. I think that's the thing. I think that target audience is very much, fine, we know that we have creatives even in Kenya, but how do they monetize? How do they, how do we impact them in a very big way, right? And take them to the next level in terms of their body of work and how they can monetize. I think for me, I'm glad to be part of that journey to impact people in a big way in what they do for their livelihoods. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that works. So final question. Mm-hmm. You as Lee Mungai.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to in 2025?
2025. Well, in terms of the teams that we're working with, we have, again, we definitely want to grow the business, for sure. Definitely take Qhala to the next level. I think one of the things also we are, or rather I'm part of, is also in the strategy part of things now. We're defining strategy for engineering and consulting. And how we want to shape that for 2025 and beyond in terms of what projects can we take on going forward, so that we can now define the strategy for the business, right? Because I think that's a new thing now we are working on in 2025 is a strategy for the business units, and how that will look like. So the last quarter of last year, we've been having all these meetings in terms with different business units, and a consultant in terms of helping us define strategy for the business, engineering being part of that, and what we need that will look like for the next few years, and what we need to start planning and structuring now to be able to have that team that will be able to build all these amazing software solutions for our customers.
Okay, this is the last question for you. Just based on what you're saying and based on the experience and based on the people that you've been talking to, where would you say Kenyan techies rank when it comes to, I guess, the people you've worked with across different continents.
Yeah.
Because, there's one thing about natural ability, natural understanding, the way we're known to run. How would you describe Kenya's tech skills?
I think they're phenomenal. One of the things that I think we all know, for example, once Microsoft started their development center here in Nairobi, I think the one thing, and even now Google has something similar, and even Amazon has. So I think we definitely are a tech hub, and that says a lot in terms of even just saying this big tech company setting up shop here. I know there's been a very big HR war because engineers are in demand, and especially Kenyan ones, right? So I believe we have a really good level of skill in terms of engineers in Kenya. And they're in short demand. And it's even in our team, for example, we're expanding, right? We're also expanding our engineering team as well. And, we go through all these interviews, and it's hard to find, because all these good skilled engineers are all taken. So I guess then the question becomes is, can you start then incubating or, for example, now we work a lot also with interns who are very interested in tech, and then basically helping them grow. But yes, I think we have some really good skill talent, tech talent in Kenya, for sure.
That's really good to know, because the dynamics are changing so fast.
Absolutely.
Companies are changing so fast. They have different requirements, different needs.
Yes.
But that'll be all for today.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping me understand and confusing me at the same time on what exactly software engineering is, product development, platform development.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best, 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
And see you soon.
Yes, thank you for hosting me.